Today we have a story of a crazy entitled parent who demands someone serve their underage kid alcohol. We'll get into that in a bit, but the first story, I am my mom's partner. I'm 21-year-old female, and I graduated from college last year. I was lucky enough to find a stable job at my last year of college where I'm still working in. My paycheck is not that impressive, but is considered a little above average in my country. My mom is the sole parent of me and my sister, 16. She married at 18 and had me at 20, turned 21 2 months later, crazy. Then got a divorce and my dad has never been in my conscious life ever since. Once I entered the workforce, LOL, I started helping my sister and mom because I wanted to and felt obliged to. Monthly help from my mom to pay for the mortgage, monthly allowance for my sister for her extracurriculars, etc. Me and mom have a pretty roller coaster relationship. One day it's flowers, next day it's fist, and it's always that I'm either 1, egoistic, 2, selfish, 3, silly, 4, a bench. It's everything all at once on a good day. I spent my college years in another city and it was pretty good. Now that I've returned to my home, it's 3 of us living here. When I try to return to my college town, a sudden jealousy attack hit my mom because I've been living with my dad's relatives there. They do keep contact and me and my sister love them. 5. Ungrateful animal is added by this point. Mom's got a huge obsession with taking bank credits for everything. She pays for the mortgage and I know it's pretty hard on her. Now that I'm earning money, we started traveling and I'm paying 60%. When I'm stuttering on traveling somewhere with friends, she's all about, "So you're not going to help me?" or "Take me with you and pay for me, why not?" I once ordered a large sushi set home and she yapped about how, "You should have used this money for my credit." Hitting included. Once she's had a bad day at work, all the unreleased anger goes on me and the banter about how I could have helped more goes on and on. I recently had a dinner with her and the grandma and I just loved how grandma said, "Yeah, now that you're together, you need to figure out how to move things on." As if I don't have my own life and goals. I know it was my fault telling her exactly how much I earn and it's a quick math that I don't endure that much expenses living with her. Yeah, that's cheating, but also other families live like this in peace with their children. I know she's trying her best and it's her first time being a mom in this life and that my help will never be enough. If you're going to tell me that I am indeed a selfish bench, I'll get it. I may be manipulated. I just need advice. Thanks. So in general, I personally feel like if you're living in a place and you can contribute something to help with the bills, it makes a lot of sense, especially if you're post-high school or whatnot, that you would contribute something to try to help out, especially if things are particularly tight. What's not normal, obviously, is all the actual kind of, abuse that's going on here. I mean, nobody deserves to put up with that, especially not somebody in OP's position. Honestly, I feel like the trickiest thing here is when people make a post like this and then say at the end, "Any advice?" And really, I feel like the main advice you can give somebody in a situation like that is try to get yourself out of there. Twirly Shirley 8 commented, "Your mom is abusive and you shouldn't ever go to therapy with one. It just gives her info on your insecurities so that she can prey on that. Solo therapy is how I learned that I'd been by my mother from a very young age. It was hard to believe, but slowly things started to make sense. I finally truly escaped after reaching rock bottom with unemployment and 3 years of substance abuse that was a direct result of my PTSD. I got a good job on the other side of the country and suddenly it was far easier to get clean and know my own worth after I gave her. I didn't do it cold turkey. I had an excellent psychiatrist who helped me taper off so that the withdrawal was endurable, but without her constant behavior, it felt so easy. Please consider escaping from her, even if it means that your sister might struggle for a while. You can always help to cover the costs for extracurriculars by paying for it directly instead of going through your mother, who could be spending it elsewhere. When you do escape, tell your sister that you aren't abandoning her and will still help her with costs that don't involve your mother. Be very adamant that things like mortgages and utility bills benefit your mother and that you won't help with that. And if her house is foreclosed on, you can always take your sister in. Your mother will be whispering in your sister's ear as a way of guilt-tripping you to pay for more, but you have to stay strong. Never back down. Enabling your mother will tell her that she can still push your buttons and control you. Just an aside, lock down your credit. I've seen many cases where parents start to get loans or credit cards to ensure that their victim can't escape because they wouldn't find a place to stay with terrible credit ratings. You also need to ensure that your mother doesn't have any access to your bank accounts. She could drain your accounts to keep control. It's truly evil, but it still happens to many. It might not be necessary, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of entitled parents, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, I love my religion, but I'm tired of feeling like a tramp. Summary, I escaped from home after several attempts to reason with my parents. After that, we tried counseling with several professionals to no avail. They tried everything they could to convince me to come back, but it isn't what I wanted. I knew they would still monitor me and control me, and at 26, I had had enough. It has been a roller coaster to say the least, and I just can't deal with it, them and their community anymore. I'm even tired of having no money because of constant professional sessions. Don't get me wrong, they have worked, but it's expensive. I started dating someone. Yes, we went for walks, dinner, movies, but I got so paranoid every time we went out that I told my parents, because many people had seen us together. Not doing anything compromising, but I come from a very judgy and disgusting community, so I knew word was going to get around quickly. I had been so stressed about the entire situation, and I hadn't gotten a break for over 4 months after leaving. I wasn't even leaving my apartment because what will people say? From leaving home and being harassed that he invited me to his house at the beach and I said yes. I went 2 weekends. I have made so many mistakes and I feel so ashamed for the things I did while I was younger, sneaking out because I wasn't allowed to stay out, going to parties, drinking, etc. But I've left that life behind. That said, I'm not one to upload pictures of myself. If my dad saw a picture of me he didn't like or didn't approve, he would call or text me and tell me to take it down. Mind you, it was never a revealing picture. I wasn't allowed to wear revealing clothes. But one of his family members uploaded pictures of us. In one, I was wearing a bikini and I put my arm around him. He didn't reciprocate though, and the other ones were us in the kitchen cooking while at their beach house. And someone sent it to my dad. He came to my apartment to talk about the situation, and he doesn't agree with the situation at all, but is willing to forget about the past. As long as I follow their demands, basically, and says he doesn't want to control me. Demands like not going out with mixed gender groups, not going out alone with a man, not going to trips, not wearing certain type of clothes. He has also told me about someone who is interested in me from the community, etc. That I'm aware of all that he has agreed for me to even live alone when that's not the case. I escaped because they wouldn't let me and I financially take care of myself. He has a limit and that type of behavior he will not accept. They don't respect me, and if those are the types of friendships that I want in my life, I honestly do love wearing clothes that show some skin. And I told my dad that I don't wear clothes for anyone but myself. I've always wanted to do so. It may seem dumb, but I was never allowed and I'm a very, very skinny girl, so I've always felt like those clothes don't look vulgar on me. And he told me that that's not what God teaches and that it does look vulgar, and that if I like to wear those types of clothes, then I need to look inside and assess myself. If a guy from the community, and then he said in general, sees that image of me in a bikini, they're not going to think, oh, she's smart, but oh, she's so hot. And do I really think that I can only offer that when I'm so smart? That the guy I'm dating is a coward because my dad asked him not to tell me because I was confused, and he did, and he also told him to respect me and he hasn't. He said that if I wanted to marry a convert, he's not against it, but I need to go back home for at least 3 months while he goes through the process, and then we can get married. But to know that our relationship will change and it will never be the same, and for us to figure it out financially, but that he'll be very disappointed because is that the lifestyle that I really want for myself? To let him know what I want myself, because if that's what I want, then he has reached his limit. They think I'm selfish and I only think of myself and no one else. Finally, to talk to my therapist and let her know. He thinks that I just tell her my version and to actually let her know all the truth, and then to tell him what she told me to see if she agrees with him. I'm so tired of feeling like a bad person, of feeling so ashamed, of feeling not good enough, of them making me feel like I can't make my own decisions. And I realize my dad is the reason for my low self-esteem, of feeling like a tramp and that I have to be this perfect being because otherwise I'm not cut out for anything in life, especially marriage. I can't take it and them anymore. Sounds to me like OP needs to move on to the next chapter of their life and stop letting their parents hold on to them and keep extending the first chapter for as long as they can. I really don't think any of this is going to stop, just considering it seems like a part of their culture, until OP just establishes that space. Deus Intis commented, "Sounds like it's time for no contact. Your parents will never let you have peace, and by continuing to allow them into your life, you're allowing them access to you to hurt you and control you. As long as you're still taking their phone calls and accepting their visits, they see it as an opportunity to convince you to let them control you again. Getting your own place and financially supporting yourself is huge, and congratulations for that. The hardest part is getting out to begin with, but until you set this boundary and stick to it, example, if you continue to shame me for having a relationship, I will no longer accept your calls, they will keep pushing. They will kick and scream and cry and make a huge scene, but ultimately you left that group, which sounds like a cult anyway, for a reason. Why do you still care what they think of you? Don't take criticism from anyone you wouldn't go to for advice. You know what will make you happy and how you want to live your life. You've already taken the first and biggest steps. Now go see through it. Step into your future. They can move forward with you or cling to the past and remain there." Our next story is entitled "Dad Makes Costco Workers' Jobs Stink." So I was visiting a Costco in Montreal, Quebec. No, I'm not Canadian, and I went to the food court for some food. This was 1 p.m., so the place was packed with people ordering pizza and hot dogs. It took me about 20 minutes to get my food. 15 minutes into waiting, an Indian dad showed up angry. He ordered 5 minutes before, and this ensued in English. The dad's was broken. The dad yelled, "I have a problem here." The worker grabbing people's orders replied, "What?" He says, "I want my food now. I've been waiting 30 minutes. An exaggeration, we watched him order. The worker said, "Well, you're gonna have to wait. Do you not see the people behind you?" The dad scoffs and returns to waiting. He gets his food and finds a table, but 30 seconds later, the dad says, "Are you trying to poison me? I ordered French fries, not this horse crap." Still swamped with orders, the worker replied, "You ordered it, you need to take it." The dad replied, "Why would I order brown pea with cheese? This looks ugly. I demand a refund now." The worker says, "Then let me see your receipt." Then the dad does something really rude, tosses a crumpled receipt onto the counter. All of us watching were shocked at this man's manners. The worker said, "A little bit of respect, please. Look here, you ordered poutine, not French fries." The dad replies, "Then give me my freaking money back." The worker, annoyed, replied, "Refund?" The dad says, "What did you think I wanted?" After getting a refund, the moron comes back, this time complaining about his ice cream. He says, "Why did you give me this with a cone? I wanted a cup." The worker responded, "I can't give it to you in a cup. That's only for soda. I need to keep my job, you know." The dad replied, "I don't care about your dang job. Give me a cup." The worker said, "Then go order one. It's less than $1, you know." Luckily, that was the last we saw of the angry Indian dad. According to some others, he was likely fresh off the boat, and in India, apparently the rich will command people to get their way. I'm not an expert in this, so correct me if I'm wrong. I finally got my order and responded with a simple "merci beaucoup" and didn't fight with the worker. I enjoyed my food while seeing the dad yelling to his family about how the food sucks. Honestly, I don't even feel comfortable approaching the topic of him being Indian and OP saying fresh off the boat. I feel like those are kind of just wild things to just toss and suggest out there. That said, you're eating at a food court. What are you expecting, the Ritz? Take your Qdoba or whatever you ordered, go sit down and be happy. You can definitely tell he's not a native Canadian though, because he would be able to identify poutine otherwise. BlackCat218 commented, "I went to our local Costco a few weeks back right on opening, and there was this couple. Each had a cart and they were taking everything of certain items. They took all the hot dog and burger buns, only left one pack that he dropped on the floor and stood on. Then they went over to the meat and started loading up on the beef mince. He yelled at me for ducking in and taking one pack. I was looking at the pork belly when he barged in and started taking them all too. I ran into him again a couple more times in the store. When I checked out, he was at the register next to me and both their carts were overflowing. I went to the food court to order a pizza for lunch and they ordered something too after me. The wife took the receipt over to the counter as soon as the machine spat it out and demanded the worker get her food right then because she didn't have time to wait. The worker tried to tell her that the orders were done in order and she would just have to wait. The husband came over and started yelling at the worker too. The security guy came over to tell them that they had to either calm down and wait like everyone else or leave. They yelled at him too. He made them leave. I don't know if they got a refund for the food they ordered or not. Our next story is expected to help because we don't have kids. We just spent a weekend with family. We are the only couple who don't have kids. We were in a cabin with 6 children. 2 of these toddlers have major attachment issues and scream for their parents if they're not being held by mom or dad. The whole weekend revolved around these 2. Husband and I were constantly given tasks to help with them, including babysitting while mom looked after the other kid. The youngest was put down for naps in the common area, and we were constantly being told to be quiet so we don't wake him. We barely had time to ourselves and wanted to get away for a hike or a swim in the lake. This never happened. Cherry on top was at the airport. Husband and I ran ahead and got through security to get away and enjoy some alone time. There was an issue at security with mom and dad, so my sister spots us sitting with our luggage and yells at us to come help. Husband ran off and I grab our luggage to see what the issue is. She left my husband with a bunch of bags, 2 screaming toddlers, and a stroller and disappeared. I come to his rescue and grab the loudest kid and try to calm him. We wind up waiting for 15 minutes with 2 screaming banshees and are getting dirty looks from everyone. My brother-in-law comes through and profusely apologizes and takes the kids. My sister comes through and barks orders for me to find some snacks for the kids as their flight is boarding soon. It's super unfair to rope us in to look after kids that aren't our responsibility. One old lady came up to us afterwards and asked if we were okay and if we knew those kids. I said I was the auntie and she gave me this pitiful look. They're not well behaved and have attachment issues. They throw tantrums constantly. Thank God we were on a different flight. Husband tells me after he's now having second thoughts about kids, and to be honest, so am I. We have another big family trip in October and we'll be in a cruise. Sister asked what flight we're taking so we can help. Husband and I are making an action plan to make ourselves scarce and we'll be booking a separate flight. Update: Sister is now asking us if we can book our flight in the afternoon to help her with the kids. We booked a flight as early as possible in the morning and will not be telling her when. Edit: the upcoming cruise is a gift for my parents as they want the whole family to be together. We paid for our own flights, however. I think OP and their husband have a lot more consideration and patience than a lot of people would in a situation like that. I mean, I understand you don't want to burn bridges, but I feel like a lot of people would not be putting up with that for very long. I guess it's one of those situations where, like in the airport and you have the screaming kids, you close your eyes and you think to yourself, 30 more minutes and it's over and I don't have to worry about it until the next trip and we'll just fix it then. Jen5872 commented, personally, I'd have told her where to get off when she barked at you to go get snacks at the airport. It's time to correct her expectations when it comes to dumping her kids on you. After the last trip where you dumped your kids on us multiple times and barked demands at us to go buy snacks, do not expect us to be available again in that capacity. You have exceeded the limits of our goodwill. Your kids, your responsibility. Our next story is entitled Mom Demands I Serve Her Underage Son Alcohol. Creative language used because I was feeling low-key petty. After working as a waitress for 2 years, I have finally had a Karen encounter. Some context: I work at a restaurant in Europe. In my particular country, we're not allowed to serve alcohol to anyone under the age of 18. However, the parents are allowed to give their kids alcohol in the privacy of their own home as long as they're over the age of 16. You're also legally forced to carry your ID with you, or you can get a pretty hefty fine in case of a police check. This is relevant later. I also don't speak the native language of the country since I'm an international student. Back to the story. This table ordered all non-alcoholic drinks except for 1 beer. They weren't in my section. I was working inside and they were sitting outside on the terrace. However, since it was nice weather and the outside section was busy, I decided to help bring food and drinks. When I got to the table and heard that the beer was for the son, I gave him a suspicious look and asked for ID. Keep in mind, bro was shorter than me. I'm around 165 centimeters, had no facial hair, and was skinnier than a Calvin Klein underwear model. The dad seemed to find it extremely funny and started laughing, while the son was visibly ticked off, looking in his little waist pouch thing for his ID. After around 3 minutes of desperate looking while I was sitting there with the fakest customer service smile in the world, he said, "I don't have it." So I denied him the beer and he got an iced tea instead. He ordered it after not getting served the beer. I thought that was the end of it and I returned the beer to the bar, but oh boy. His mom just lost her melons apparently. This is how it went, paraphrased. I bring over the iced tea and was prepared to go back inside. The entitled mom in English mumbling said, "So rude." I say, "Excuse me?" She, raising her voice, said, "You people are so rude." Me, confused as freak, entitled mother says, "Why would you rudely deny my son one beer just because he forgot his ID at home? I was here to supervise him." I then attempted to explain to this lady that I need this job and don't want to be held liable for serving alcohol to a minor. She kept arguing that he was actually 19 and I was stupid to not be able to tell. She then proceeded to say this monologue. "You were so rude, who do you think you are? Why did you ID check him when you didn't take the order? You might be legally correct, but morally you are absolutely wrong. How dare you judge me and my family? What we do in our family is not your business." Short version, she went on for a while. I was so sick of this crap, so I apologized for my rudeness and told her I won't be back to serve them anymore, and they can instead talk to any of my polite coworkers. They then proceeded to call me immigrant slurs in the native lingo while I was passing by their table. Somehow, the kid convinced one of my coworkers that he's gonna turn 18 in less than a week and he got his beer. But meh, not my problem. They also denied the whole conversation with me when the manager came to their table and said they thought I was rude but didn't confront me. Oh, and they refused to pay for the beer he got from my coworker and the iced tea he got as a replacement. They apparently made a pretty big scene about it, but I was on break, so not my problem. I think the awesome thing here is OP was in a situation where they could go, "You know what, I'm just gonna stop being your waiter for the day, good luck with somebody else." At least in that situation, OP's not gonna be on the hook for the beer, or the rude customers necessarily. Terran345 commented, "This sounds like an almost identical situation to the one I had last week. The mother said we were so rude for not accepting her word that her son was old enough, that we were basically calling her a liar." She later wrote in to complain, stating that, "A simple 'Do you have any ID? I'm really sorry, but I can't let you in without it, and I understand and I'm sorry. It's just really hard to tell teenagers' ages, that's why I need to see some ID,' would be better than, 'I am sorry, but we can't take your word for it, and so I'm going to need to see some ID.' Whilst ignoring or perhaps forgetting that we'd said almost exactly word for word the phrase she'd suggested, but that she didn't accept it, which is why we had to tell her that we couldn't take her word for it in the first place. She was demanding that both I and the staff member call her to apologize. We didn't. Our next story is, I just don't know what to do with my manipulative mother. I am 28, male, a cardiologist in training pursuing a PhD, managing various international projects, plus having another part-time job at outpatients clinic. I've been living alone for 3 years. I always had a good relationship with my mother, 45-year-old female. I thought it was better than most of my peers. I've always had the feeling that she wasn't satisfied with how I did certain things, but I never explored it more deeply. For example, that I don't work hard enough. Everything changed about a year ago when I introduced them to my new girlfriend. Honestly, I thought they would be thrilled with her. Well-mannered, college-educated, intelligent. I never realized that her tattoos would be such a problem. On the day of the introduction, my mother called me, and the next day she even came to my house in person ASAP. I had to listen to how much I'd hurt her, that I was a bad son and that I disappointed her. She managed in less than 2 hours to analyze my girlfriend and concluded that she was a bad person who liked to harm herself and was mentally disturbed because she had tattoos. She gave me an ultimatum, either her or my girlfriend. She then told the whole family, so I also received similar phone calls from my grandparents. After numerous emotional meetings and text messages, she took back the ultimatum as if it never happened. In her eyes, I have to make a compromise. I shouldn't mention my girlfriend, I should act as if she doesn't exist, and continue visiting them happily as before. Of course, it didn't work. I didn't like visiting them, it was emotionally draining. Every time I mentioned her first name, we argued. When she saw my location at the place where my girlfriend works, I received blackmailing text messages. When I posted a photo with her on social media, my mom had to unfollow me. I tried to limit the frequency of visits to my parents, but every time I don't come, I get a message about how cold I am and that I don't make my parents happy. Going low contact doesn't help either. She always found a way to contact me somehow. Of course, I always defended my girlfriend in front of them, and when they made inappropriate comments, I ended the conversation and left. She doesn't know about many of these things. She doesn't deserve to suffer unnecessarily. It's unfair for her to be insulted by people who don't even know her, especially when she doesn't deserve it. None of my mother's predictions about her have come true. I've tried to find compromises and gradually get my parents to at least a certain level of acceptance. However, I'm exhausted by this and seeing no way out. I'm tired of hearing how I failed as a person, how they sacrificed their whole lives for me and that I'm ungrateful, that I don't care about them, that my girlfriend is more important to me than they are, that I'm selfish for not caring about my parents' happiness. No argument seems to work. It's as if my feelings don't matter. Everything I bring up from the past is misunderstood or supposedly happened differently than I remember. They say the whole situation is my fault because I knew my mom didn't like tattoos. But I've long realized that this isn't really about my girlfriend, but about me. My parents don't understand that I wasn't choosing between them and my girlfriend, but that I chose myself and the ability to make my own decisions. However, they still think that if I broke up with her, everything would be perfect again and we would all get along. I don't feel that way though. I feel they have completely humiliated me. I feel that they're not good people. I've even started to doubt myself. I've even tried many times to view the situation from my parents' perspective, wondering if perhaps I made a mistake and caused the entire situation myself. Objectively, I know that I've already achieved more than my parents did in their entire lives in terms of work. I have a perfect relationship with my girlfriend. I don't even think I'm morally at rock bottom. I've acted correctly towards my girlfriend as she is the most important person in my life. I believe there are many things my parents could be proud of. Despite this, I feel trapped. Just the thought of living in the same city as her evokes a sense of lack of freedom in me. Still feel something like a mother gaze or a sense of her constant scrutiny. I'm not looking for any advice. I just wanted to vent anonymously to some strangers on the internet and see if anyone has had a similar experience. I'm trying to find hope for improvement. Haha. I know exactly what I need to do, and I'm looking for the inner strength to do it. To go to the therapy and to cut all ties with them. However, I find this extremely difficult due to the past. My father is a former alcoholic, and I was my mother's support during tough times. I also feel sorry to lose contact with the rest of my family, especially my sister, 23-year-old female, still living with them, but also my father. They don't share my mother's views, but they don't openly oppose her for the sake of household peace. It's challenging also because just over a year ago, everything seemed to be fine. At least I didn't realize that it wasn't. I think the alarming thing is the amount of supervision she does have here. The fact that OP can't feel like they can cut off their mom and still talk to their 23-year-old sister because what? They're going to read all their messages or something, I assume? The fact that OP said she looks at my location and she's upset about where I am. Why does OP have to share their location with their mom when OP's 28 years old? I think more than the overreaching mom, I think that's the biggest issue is the fact that they don't have any self-sense of privacy. Bookworm Trisha replied, "You know what you need to do. Now you need to find the strength to do it. Yes, it is hard. Talk to your girlfriend about all that has been said. She can be there for you. Lend you strength. You mentioned there knowing when you visited your girlfriend. Are you being tracked via an app on your phone? A tag on your car? If so, get rid of it. At your age and accomplishments, you are fully adult, and where you go is none of their business." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another crazy entitled parent story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.